Good morning. It is second day of week 2 of teaching at the University of Bristol studying veterinary science. Now today we have a introduction to the bovine industry. So I'm presuming that's going to be both beef and cattle. I'm presuming it's looking more into the industry side of it, hence it's called the bovine industry. So that'd be quite interesting because obviously I'm somewhat familiar with the beef side of things, having been a butcher for the past 7.5 years. But the dairy, I really know next to nothing about dairy. It's not something I've ever looked at or familiarised myself with or heard, or I'm just not that familiar with it. So that'll be the interesting part of that, if there's actually anything interesting, or if they're just going to say the basics and say that, calves drink milk and, there's, gets pasteurised and you can have different types of milk or some bollocks, I don't bloody know. So yeah, see what that's all about. Again, another introduction session, one of many. So again, I feel like going to be quite basic, rudimentary, and some of it's probably common sense. And then we have a cell biology and a health, a well-being session, which I know is going to be bollocks. But the cell biology, it's going to be online because the lecturer has injured their leg, so that's online. So we're going to hit a library after the first session this morning, because we've got a full day today, 9 till 5. Lecture first thing, then we got 2 hours of online lecture, just because the lecturer is off, which is great. And then there's a health and safety lecture, so another fun session about pointing out the obvious. But then at the end of the day we have a 3-hour practical on for introduction to microscope and epithelia. So hopefully that's actually going to be fun. It's 3 hours of it, so hopefully something good comes out of it, and it's not just hopefully it's not super basic and rudimentary, and that hello, this is a microscope, this is a slide, this is like what you do in secondary school, like this is an onion slice and this is a bit of blood or something. It's just hopefully we actually get some good information, and it turns out to be an interesting and fun practical. Hopefully it's not just standing around pretty much for most of it, but just in lab coats, so that counts as a practical. Because that's what I hope with these practical sessions, that they are actually practical, that we are actually we're actually doing stuff. It's for 3 hours, so I suspect that, I surmise that hopefully there's quite a bit of involvement. But we'll see. Hopefully it's not just pretty much standing around for 3 hours, but because you're not in a lecture theatre, it's classed as a practical, something like that. You're mostly just standing around writing notes anyway, and you're in lab coats anyway, and you only have to do one practical thing that is super simple. So we'll see what it's all about anyway. And yeah, give an update momentarily on how the day has gone and what we've learned, if anything at all. Okay, you join us now heading back home after today's session. Now, so we had a cell biology session this morning. We had introduction to the bovine industry, cattle and dairy, and we had 2 online sessions due to an absence, but they were incredibly quick. They were 30 minutes just to peruse over very simple stuff, so that was ideal. That allowed us to get on with some other work. And then we had a 3-hour practical with anatomy. Now, first session, bovine industry. That was alright, that was okay. Again, very basic stuff. Talking a lot about beef breeds and dairy breeds, talking about the sustainability of the farming around them, talking about again, yeah, like breed specific stuff. So like with your Friesians, they have high milk yields, and then compared to say, compared to the others, so your Jerseys and stuff, like they're just slightly less yield, but have that high butterfat content. So just like contrast and like in weights and colorations and things, just so that you can distinguish the differences between them. Same thing for beef cattle. Again, talking about a little bit about just a brief overlay of like sustainability, about the impacts of farming, the UK's contribution to greenhouse gases and so forth, and all these other just basic facts. Talking a bit about the likes of colostrum, talking about the differences between heifers and cows, steers and bulls, talking about crosses, and yeah, just basic stuff. But yeah, that was alright. Then we had biology, which again, just talking about basic systems, just a simple foundation to build upon. Talking about, what was it today? Talking about more about proteins, and what was it? Proteins. I don't recall much from that session, because even the lecturer mentioned that everything that he was saying, because he tends to go on a bit of a tangent. It's all interesting, and he's a good teacher, or good lecturer, I should say, but he does go on these slight tangents, and that did reiterate at several points that not all of this is going to be notified in your exams. So the obscure facts and figures and terminology don't need to memorize these all off by heart, and you'll never come across these again in your life. So it's one of those where some of it is applicable, some of it isn't, some of it's just common sense, some of it's just some background information, just to obviously give those who are actually interested, because obviously there are people there who are going to be, well, there might not be many, it might even be next to no one, but there may still be people there who want to go down the scientific, clinical, lab-based route and want to peruse and delve into, say, the microbial and cell system-based aspects of, say, a veterinary degree. And then we had a gap between there. We went to the library and engaged in we managed to get caught up on a lot of stuff. So we did the pre-reading for the histology practical today, which was informative, because it turned out to be quite easy, and I sort of knew what I was going to be doing and the terminology and everything that was there, because I've read the pre-material. So it was actually quite an easy thing. We had a workbook to work through, and that was a bit of a breeze, and managed to leave early. So that was ideal. But back to the break, so just managed to get caught up on some work, caught up on some reading for later in the week, caught up on the asynchronous stuff that needed to be done tomorrow, so bias and bystander training, which isn't really training, it's essentially just a PowerPoint of stuff associated with bias and bystander related stuff. So talking about similar sort of topic to the likes of ethics and morality and judgment and prejudices and microaggressions and all these inclusion and safeguarding things that the university and establishments like to do. So we did that, but managed to catch up on that. Just read through all that stuff, filled in a bunch of forms, checked off a few boxes. None of it had to be done. A little bit had to be done, but and I think a lot of people won't do it and they won't be penalised for it. But we did it anyway, just because it keeps us on top and keeps us in the loop. People in chat getting confused and saying, "Oh, what's this? Where's that? How did you find out about this?" Well, it's all there. You just have to look and be on the ball. So we've done that, caught up on some stuff, that means that we can have a relatively chilled and relaxed evening. We caught up on some good stuff. The only things on my agenda at the moment is to work on the CBL task that we'll be meeting up for another group session on Thursday to consolidate and work on a bit more prior to submission. And then essentially, writing up a few odds and ends of notes. Not many, because a lot of them, because the past few days we've had lots of health and safety and quite basic lectures that don't really require me to write them up. Nothing really like anatomical or system or health based really. There's a few odds and ends that I want to just add to my little notebook of concise sort of flashcards and key information that I want to ensure that I remember. So I do want to do that, but again, there's no rush. There's still time for that. We have biosecurity training, so boot washing and hand washing on Thursday, alongside prior to our CBL task. Because of course it is basics, it is boring, it is simple. Wash your hands, basic simple hygiene, but obviously it's like they mentioned, like incidences do happen where people do get affected, and the backlash is bad. It's a similar thing with health and safety. Although it's boring, yes, it's very simple, but it's a case of like you should never ever take it for granted. Yes, it is boring. Yes, it is very simple. A lot of it is common sense, but at the same time, it is always it has to be in the back of your mind, because again, if you misuse a piece of machinery, or you didn't follow the instructions and you didn't pay attention to the notices, in some cases these can be fatal and hindering. And it's just, it's a case of where they could have been avoided. These major instances where you see people being injured by animals, injured by machinery, injured, simple slips and trips and falls, like working on ladders, wet floors, basic things that can so easily be avoided, and like the backlash is just not worth it. It's just not worth it. So just pay attention to the health and safety rules. Really pay attention to it. Because in butchery, for instance, like the most major cause of accidents and injury was associated with manual handling, not necessarily with knives. It was with manual handling, because it's such an easy thing that people they don't use the correct posture. They try and, obviously a male-dominated industry. Lots of blokes being like, oh, I can lift that, and then they hurt themselves and they don't lift correctly, and they lift more than they can manage, and they hurt themselves. And it's a case where you may be potentially injured for life. I knew a couple of guys who they worked at an abattoir, and they delivered essentially all our meat to us, all the whole carcass stuff. One chap at one place, he brought in the beef, and one of the chaps said, one of the forequarters of beef was low hanging in the fridge, so it was quite close to the floor. So the string that it was suspended from on the hook was quite long. It was quite close to the floor, so lifting it out would take two people. We should have taken two people just to lift it out and do that ourselves, but silly of them. They asked one of the employees asked the chap who was delivering the beef could you just lift that up so that we could shorten the string and raise it up higher so it's easiest for carry. They did that, they busted their back, and they were off work for several months. And wasn't good. And then obviously another chap, he busted up his shoulder just from carrying these forequarters. Because it's heavy. You're carrying, like 80 plus. You could be carrying, anywhere from like 100 to 80 kilo, even more sometimes. kilos of beef, and you're doing that several times, several trips, several journeys, using heavy jerking motions to lift them up and get them down and stuff. You're getting in awkward positions to hook them up. So it's dangerous stuff. I've not injured myself badly, but I have strained myself a bit more than I should have in the profession over the years with manual handling, getting that bit exhaustive and that bit but yeah, anyway, off on a big tangent, but yeah, health and safety, important. That's the moral of the story there. Finally, it was a histology practical, so working in a lab. We didn't have to wear lab coats or anything. It wasn't that kind of practical. We were just working with we had a brief demonstration on how to use a light microscope, which was quite interesting. I thought it was actually quite nice, because everyone got a microscope each, because I thought it was going to be a case of it would be like one microscope per like 10 to 12 people or something, and no one would really have a go on it, and it would sort of force us to like chat a bit, and a lot of people like wouldn't be chatting, and yeah, just be a bit of an awkward. But it was cool that they had microscopes pretty much for everyone, which I thought was like pretty cool, that everyone could use a microscope, for like 100 people there roughly, and everyone had access to a microscope. That's pretty cool. And then we had access to tons of slides. We didn't get to look at many, but we just practiced setting up a slide, looking at it, focusing, adjusting the lights, getting used to all the different levels and gears and focusings and all that stuff. So that was quite fun. It wasn't the worst. I think it could have been delivered a lot worse. So it was quite fun. It was nice and interactive, just talking through it, talking to people next to you, saying how you could do it and stuff like that, and like actually looking at the slides as well, because they had this box. There's a box essentially full of slides, pre-made slides of different parts of both human and animal parts, so like human spleen and dog tongue and dog foot and human liver and human heart and things like that. Just these little tiny slides. So it would be interesting to learn that. Like because I think it would be quite an interesting thing to try and identify the body parts based on the cellular level. Because at the moment we've been told, like, okay, so this is a dog tongue. This is a dog tongue section, and this is a dog's tracheal section and stuff, things like that. And obviously they're labelled for us on a cool. Actually, there's a cool interface that you'll use, or at least on the Bristol Uni system, that essentially has these like really nice high definition rendered images, and you can zoom in, you can edit, you can create annotations, you can arrow and box, and it's a really cool interface and super easy to use, and you get some really nice quality images on it. So I thought that was quite cool. So yeah, not a bad session. So I feel like that other nice, good basic foundation stuff there for histology, essentially. But yeah, the plan now is to go home. We'll settle and relax into the evening. And then the plan for tomorrow, because there's no lectures tomorrow, and since we've done all the asynchronous stuff, we will work on our CBL stuff. I've assigned myself to work on the presentation for the group, or at least make a start on it. So I'll create a foundation, maybe find some images, and add my section, which is about legislation, and then I'll consolidate that with the rest of them on the Thursday session, to then add all the other bits about husbandry and care and other information that was a part of the task. And then we'll do our own formative document as well, summative document, and everything else alongside that. So for Thursday, which will be on our next tuning in session, there's a biosecurity training day, so there's a few tasks associated with that day. And there is the CBL, and then the biosecurity review at the end of the day once everyone has done it. So, but a day out at Langford, which is nice. I do like Langford. It's a nice place. Nice place. Fewer people, because Bristol is just so many people, buildings, and yeah, Langford is just a lot nicer. It feels a lot like holier, and yeah, very very nice campus. So glad to be going back there again. Glad we have that at least once a week, which is nice. And that'd be good once we actually start getting into some good practicals with animal handling and going out to their dairy farm and doing sheep handling there and looking at horses, going into the small animal clinic. All that I think will be quite interesting once we start getting into the practicals at Langford that are animals and a bit more progressive and less foundation, because again, like we say, I want to try and get past this foundation stuff because it's quite easy at the moment. We are managing. Yeah, not a bad day. Better than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a very laboursome day and hard to get through, and at the end of the day we'd just be in a mopey, dopey mood. But feeling pretty good, so not a bad day. So we will tune in on Thursday and let you know the comings and goings and the hip and happenings on the day.